I wish good things to you who's watching this. I am Alexey, and I just came back from Germany where the 2023 World Carcassonne Championship was held. In it, I had an incredible tournament run, managing to reach all the way to the finals. Today, I will be sharing with you my tournament journey, explaining how Carcassonne is played at the top level, and showing you what it takes to get this far and what it would have taken to go one step further and claim the World Champion title. I decided to break my story into 3 videos. Today, we will cover the preliminary round and the quarterfinals. The semi-final and final games had so much going on in them that they each deserve a separate video. I know many of you have particularly requested an analysis of the semi-finals game, but it is going to need to wait for a couple of weeks. Instead, we'll be doing a deep dive in one of the preliminary round games today, one in which I think I managed to play some of the best Carcassonne of my life and employ a strategic concept I had never mentioned on my channel before. This game occurred in round 3. By that time, I had already made it onto the feature table, so there's footage. We are going to get there later in the video, but for now, we'll start with the beginning. The tournament field was stacked like never before. 42 players from 37 countries, including 5 previous world champions, 6 top online players who have at least once achieved rank number 1 on Board Game Arena, and many other strong masters and experts. In round 1, I was paired up with the Brazilian national champion Fabio Sanchez for what ended up being my hardest game of the entire preliminary round. Here is the final position from our game. At the end of the game, my opponent was controlling this field over here, which was worth 9 points, this bigger field over here, which was worth 15 points, and this huge ruin over here, which is worth 20 points. And yet, somehow, I still won the game with a 2-point difference. How is that possible, you may ask? Well, we ended up playing a double imbalance, a type of position that occurs maybe once every 500 games, if not rarer. What does that mean? In Carcassonne, an imbalance occurs when the two opponents, instead of fighting for one major feature, each build their own major feature, opting for a race instead of a confrontation. The most common type of imbalance is a field versus monastery cluster. I love playing imbalances, especially as the fieldless player. And in fact, imbalance is the first theoretical concept that I ever mentioned on my channel. Go check out my video analysis of the semi-final of the 2021 Mindsports Olympiad to find out more. The game you see on the screen was a double imbalance, meaning that we each had 2 major features in different parts of the board. My opponent's 15-point field was partially offset by my 11-point road, and my opponent's 20-point city was partially offset by my 2 completed monasteries over here in the center for 18 points. As I managed to complete the monasteries, I got the 2 meeples back to score some quick points and offset the remaining point difference. In an imbalanced position, the game is typically won by the player who manages to use their tiles most efficiently, either through skill or luck or a combination of both. Let's have a look at this 11-point road over here. Try to guess how many tiles I spent purely on prolonging this road. The answer is 0. How is that possible? Well, let's see. I claimed this road very early in the game during this tile. At the time, these 2 tiles were already on the board because my opponent had a monastery meeple over here and my opponent was about to finish a city over here. This tile was of course added later in the game by my opponent to finish his city. This tile was also added later in the game by my opponent when he was finishing his monastery. This tile was also added by my opponent when he was dropping his first city meeple. This tile was added by me when I was scoring 4 points for this little city piece. This tile was also added by me, but not for building the road. It was added by me when I was trying to start a new city, which ended up being worth only 2 points, but you know, that's a different part of the game. And finally, these 3 remaining tiles were added by me, but not just to prolong the road. They also completed my monastery over here. In fact, I ended up having meeples on these 2 monasteries as well. So it turns out that I made only 1 pure road move, and that resulted in an 11-point road. So this covers the road versus field imbalance. Now let's look on the other side of the board. Some of you may ask, why bother playing an imbalance? Why did you have to let your opponent build a 20-point ruin? Why not fight for the ruin like a normal person? That is because it is easier said than done. Because my opponent showed some excellent city building. First, he claimed the city next to my monasteries, so I was forced to add a city tile to his city just to get my monastery meeple back. Then, he kept expanding the ruin in a way that not only adds points to the city, but also keeps it covered up from all sides, denying me an attacking platform. At some point, he even threatened completing the city, doubling its number of points and decimating my winning chances. So I was forced to add 1 more city tile into my opponent's city just to make sure it's blocked and cannot be completed. My opponent kept the city inaccessible, so my only win condition was to find points elsewhere. With a sigh of relief, I moved on to round 2, tied for first with 20 other contestants. In round 2, I was paired up with Werner Busch of Argentina, and the most bizarre thing happened. We started a normal game, made about 15 moves, achieving an equalish position, and then the tournament director made an announcement. Apparently, one of the players had submitted the wrong result for round 1, and that affected the round 2 pairings. So we were told to abort our game and wait until they allocate everyone a new opponent. Werner is a viewer of my channel, so we were both keen to chat and discuss our game position during the wait, given that the game no longer mattered. I was like, oh yeah, the move that you're about to play was very good, it really hurts me, and here's another interesting way how you could hurt me in the future, and then I could hurt you like this, and then you could hurt me like that. And then the tournament director came back. It turned out that the change they needed to make was very minor, and one that would not affect the top boards. Our pairing remained unchanged, so the director's ruling was that we should continue our game from where we stopped, instead of starting a new one. And I was thinking, uh-oh, my big mouth is about to lose me the championship. Luckily, the worst case scenario never materialized. Here's what actually happened in the game. I drew some city caps for quick points, but my opponent drew 2 early monasteries for a slight lead. Then, he threatened to further his lead by stealing a city of mine, creating the following pattern. Luckily, I was able to do this, then this, and then this, which resulted into 2 blocked city meeples of my opponent next to only 1 blocked city meeple of my own. Then, the rest of the game, I managed to play a classic meeple majority. More meeples allowed me to score more quick points, to be the first one to claim the main field, and to drop a second farmer to defend said field when Werner tried to attack it, all of that resulting in a win of about +20. I had 2 victories in 2 rounds and was tied for first with 10 other participants. This brings us to round 3 and the main part of today's video. I was paired up with Alfonso Arroyo, which already makes our encounter special, mainly because of how we both got to the World Championship. I'll explain whilst you watch the footage of us preparing for the game, eagerly waiting for the start. I am fiddling with my Latvian colored meeples, as you can see. Alfonso is not touching her meeples. Her meeples, by the way, are made of metal, which makes them much heavier. But maybe the weight of the meeples is not the issue, it's just Alfonso is probably less fidgety than I tend to be. Well, anyway, most players qualify for the World Championships by winning a national championship. Alfonso and I were among the few players that didn't. There are 3 ways how one can qualify without winning a national championship. Option 1. Be the reigning world champion. The last year's world champion is traditionally granted a chance to defend their title without having to go through a national selection again. This option does not apply to us. The 2022 world champion was Arpad Gere of Romania. Option 2. Win the Mindsports Olympiad Grand Prix in Carcassonne, which is by far the most competitive and prestigious online tournament held earlier in the year. This year's Mindsports Olympiad Grand Prix winner was Jorim Meya of Chile. Option 3. Qualify through the Carcassonne World Cup, or more precisely, the World Team Carcassonne Online Championship, which is the official name of that tournament. This is, of course, the biggest team event of the year and one that is responsible for half the content on my channel. The teams that place in the top 4 get a spot on the Carcassonne World Championship for one of their team members, in addition to the spot reserved for the national champion of the respective country. Earlier this year, Team Latvia placed 3rd in the online team championships and Team Spain placed 4th. I was chosen by my teammates to represent Team Latvia and Alfonso was chosen from Team Spain. So our round 3 game is a battle of online qualifiers. Furthermore, in the bronze medal match of said World Cup earlier this year, I was also playing exactly against Alfonso Arroyo. Of all the 10 possible members of Team Spain against I could have theoretically been paired up, I had won that duel, so our round 3 game that has just started was also a potential rematch from that bronze medal match. It's just a lot of interesting coincidences, that's what I was trying to say. So anyway, the game has started and we're mostly making natural moves. Alfonso starting a city, I'm starting a road, continuing my road to be precise. Then Alfonso finishes an 8-point city and she is in the lead. I get a city piece, I get to start another city, and suddenly this field next to these cities is looking not too bad, which is why Alfonso, adhering to the traditional Iberian style of early farmers, claims that field, which I think is the best move. I continue my road for 1 extra point. Alfonso gets a triangle city tile with a piece of road on it, and she places it in a way that obstructs my city and also starts a city of her own. In the meantime, I finish an 8-point city and drop a farmer to equalize Alfonso's farmer in the future. Once my little city piece is completed over here, this whole thing will be one big field, which is why my opponent is now trying to prevent that. She places this crossroad tile over here simply to create a blocking platform. If she draws any road tile, she can go over here, and then this meeple will be trapped over here until the rest of the game, and I can't do anything about it. So instead, I just claim another road. And this is a move which is worth pausing for. So this road that I claimed is almost inevitably going to be one road, so why did I place a second meeple on what essentially is one feature? Well, the answer is I did this purely for defensive reasons, because if Alfonso draws a curve, she can put it over here, claim that road, and then connect this road like this, and then this whole thing will be shared, which means I will not be getting my road points, which is sad. So that's why I decided to invest a second meeple. Normally, roads are not as valuable to commit 2 meeples, but in all likelihood I will be getting those back because this road is relatively safe. So this square is unblockable because there's still 7 crossroads that go into here, also plenty of curves. This square, plenty of straight lines or starting tiles or crossroads, and this square is completely unobstructed. So the meeples on this road will likely be reclaimed by me at some point. Now my opponent has a city cap piece and she finishes a city, scores 4 points. She's now leading slightly, and now I have a curve and I of course defend my city so that now it will not be blocked. We lost the footage for a few moves, but several interesting things have happened. So let's pause the game right here. First, I nearly finished my road. All I need to do is find one more tile that goes over here, and then I'll be getting 9 points for the road on the scoreboard and 2 meeples back. The second thing that I managed to do relates directly to the strategic concept I wanted to talk about in relation to this game, and the concept is setup plays. See this tile over here? I was the one who placed it. It's a city tile, but I used it as a road end tile. Instead of claiming 2 points somewhere with it, maybe here or here, I placed it in such a way that pre-builds a 6-point road which goes through my incompleted city, which means that only I can claim that road in the future. So if I get one of the 3 remaining daggers, and that's an 88% chance that I will get one of these daggers, I can place it over here, score 3 extra points for the city, get a meeple back, and instantly place a meeple on the road, scoring 6 more points myself. So this move with this tile was a setup. It didn't give me any points then, but it made sure that I had a high chance of scoring a lot of points in the future. Now, this is a type of move that is not new. I have talked about it on my channel before, but what I had not talked about it is how moves like these relate to my overall game plan, and we are going to see that a few moves down the road. Alfonso continues her city, and now I get the splitter tile. So here we also need to pause for a second. I, of course, get my meeple back and score 4 points for the city, but just so you know, it's a little bit bleak over here, but Alfonso has a meeple on this city, and a meeple on this city, and I have a meeple on this city, which means that if this city will be unified, then all of that will belong to Alfonso. So that's a threat, but let's see how I deal with that threat a little bit later. Alfonso gets a city tile, and with that she chooses to restrict my road. Now, this is not a real block because there's still 3 tiles that fit into that square, but it certainly is a good move because it delays the time that I get a meeple back, because now crossroads don't go into that square anymore and straight road don't go into that square anymore, so I will have to wait specifically for one of the 3 city caps with a straight road, also known as starting tiles. I get a big city tile, and with that I decide to expand my part of the city a little bit, at the same time setting up some blocking opportunities. In the meantime, Alfonso gets 4 points for roads, and she now has a slight lead again. Now I have a city cap, and this explains my previous move. Now I'm able to complete the block because there are no tiles remaining that fit into that square over here, which means that Alfonso will have 2 meeples trapped on this incompleted city, and I have only 1 meeple trapped, and this city is still open. And let's pause the video again, because look at what happened just now. This move was played very quickly, but it is very important to the strategic concept that I described before. I placed the city cap over here, and what that did was pre-building a 6-point city for the time when I get the starting tile and put it into that square. So I've set up a 7-point move. When I get a starting tile, and again, because there's 3 of those, there's an 88% chance of that happening, then I will not only score an extra road points and get 2 meeples back, I will also score 6 points for the city. So it's an interesting symmetry over here. I have already 2 sets up on the board for a total of 6 high impact tiles, 3 of each. There is 1 tile that allows me to claim an extra road when I complete my city, and there's another tile which allows me to claim an extra city when I complete my road. Alfonso has a city piece, so she just expands her ruin, and I have a interesting piece, and the move that I'm about to make with this piece is probably the most fun move I got to play in the entire championship. So why don't you pause the video? Let me know what you would have played and why. So here's what I thought of doing at first. This is a shielded big city tile, so a natural move, and one which definitely would not be a big mistake, would be to place it over here next to my city like this, and this would add 2 points to my ruin, and it would also make sure that I have more squares to expand this ruin to. Because Alfonso could get a road and place it like this, and maybe block my ruin from expansion, and I would be trapped there with just 3 points. But this is not the move I played, which made it even more fun because I had to forego such a good option to find something better. So let's see what happened. I placed this city tile over there and dropped a farmer. Now, why did I do that? I spent a meeple on a 3-point field instead of either adding 2 points to my city or simply claiming a 2-point road. But there's a lot of ideas behind this move. First of all, it takes advantage of this so-called evil hamster spot. There are still 2 road monasteries in the game that fits into this square. And if I get one of these 2 road monasteries, then the payoff is huge. I get 9 points for the monastery itself, and I get to sneak this guy into the main field, and I get to tie this field, and the field is going to be worth at least 9 points, maybe even 12. So a road monastery, if I get this, will give me possible 18 points with just one move. But this move also did something else. It neutralized the same potential threat for my opponent. Because what happens if she gets the road monastery first, or if she gets both road monasteries? She'll have a choice. Either also claim 9 points over here, but then she'd be letting my farmer in, and she'd be losing 6 points from this farm, and possibly potentially losing 3 more points if I complete my city. So for her, a monastery road tile will be worth a maximum of 3 points and possibly 0 points. So with this move, I created a third setup for one of the 2 road monasteries with a huge payoff, and also I made sure that the 2 road monasteries have basically become worthless for my opponent. But there's more. This move only works in combination with the 2 previous setup moves. Let's just revise this board situation again. For this square, I have 3 tiles that give me 7 points and 2 meeples back. For this square, I have 3 tiles that give me 9 points and a meeple back. And for this square, I have 2 tiles that give me 18 points and 0 meeples back. That's a total of 8 high impact tiles when there are only 38 tiles remaining in the deck. And I don't necessarily need to draw all 3 tiles. Well, first of all, I am actually a mathematical favorite to draw 1 of each. And if I do so, then I probably win by a huge margin and there is nothing that my opponent can do. But I don't have to draw everything in order to win. I just have to draw 1 of these tiles to stay competitive and 2 of these tiles to secure a sizable advantage. And from now on, my game plan is just to wait. 1 of these tiles is eventually coming. Statistically, it is extremely unlikely for my opponent to draw all 8 of these tiles. In that event, of course, I would lose the game, but this happens very, very rarely. There are several productive ways to think about a game of Carcassonne. One is to think in terms of points. How much is the immediate point value of the move I'm making if I'm scoring points? Or if I'm blocking an opponent, how much points worth of tiles am I spending on completing the block, and how many future points am I denying my opponent by blocking their feature? But another useful way of thinking is in terms of win probabilities. I like to think about it like this. We start the game each with a 50% chance of winning, although technically it's not true. The first player has a slightly greater winning chance. So we start the game with roughly a 54 and 46% chance of winning, and then throughout the game we work to increase those percentages, hopefully at some point hitting 100. And if we look at this position, even though my opponent is ahead on the scoreboard and on meeples, just because of the way these three setups work together, my win percentage here, provided that neither side makes a crucial mistake, is probably like in the 70s at this point. Because if you look from the perspective of my opponent, I mean, what is she supposed to do? I guess one way how she could get some counterplay is maybe get some monasteries, but this board is so dry. I know, maybe there's a monastery spot over here, right? But this city piece over here is a bit of a thorn. And so, for example, if my opponent is to get a monastery, and she's going to place it over here, then the next monastery she can't really stack on top of it, so she has to go over there, which is only 3 points, which is even worse. And the third monastery she would have to place over there, which is also 3 points. So actually it's really hard for her to do something other than simply hope that I don't get my tiles for a long time. And the reason why the board is so dry is the exact choice of tile with which I choose to make my field setup move. You see, this triple city with road, it covers up the field, so this field can no longer be attacked. If it will be 9 or 12 points, and then that's it, these 12 points will belong to me. Now, some of you may ask, why would I select a tile that restricts my field on purpose? Because it will not grow more than 12 points, it is capped. The answer is, in Carcassonne, you do not want to make your field as big as possible. You want to make your field big enough to win. And 12 points is definitely big enough for a field, especially on a dry board like this. There's no other feature for which either of us could invest one meeple and get as many as 12 points. Had I done the field invasion with any other tile, for example, a row tile like this, then Alfonso could always re-attack the field, expand the field, and maybe use her temporary meeple majority to even take away this field from me. That's why it was so important to grab onto this window of opportunity, to sacrifice a tile which would fit my city ruin perfectly, and then to complete this setup play. So we have our enclosed field, we have our 8 high impact tiles, and then we just wait. Alfonso starts a new city, although I think this is obstructed a little bit by the commentator of that live stream. I take some quick points. Yeah, that's also another downside, like I can only use quick points because I only have one meeple, but I just have to endure a couple moves when I'm short on meeples, and I can still do stuff. You see, I just added 1 point to my ruin. I just need to survive those few moves until I finally get a high impact tile and potentially a meeple back. Alfonso starts a ring road. I need to still endure having only one meeple, so I just add 1 extra point to my ruin. I do it reluctantly because it also makes it so that my ruin cannot grow, but then I notice that there are in fact very few city tile left, so I can afford to close it down. Alfonso gets some roads. I still need to endure some more moves without a meeple. Of course, it's a disadvantage that I'm forced to not meeple such a juicy shielded tile, but I still managed to extract some value. With that move, I'm about to create a blocking platform next to Alfonso's city meeple over here. She does have a meeple over here, and I think for a long time where exactly to place it. I'm calculating a bunch of options, but then I decided for a variety of reasons that this one gives me the best blocking probability, the best expected value. Now Alfonso does get a monastery. She gets 6 points for what is probably the best monastery spot. And now finally I get one of my setup tiles. I get 6 points for the city. I get 9 points for the road. And I get 2 meeples back, and at this point I'm definitely a big favorite to win the game because I'm already ahead on the scoreboard. I'm ahead on the meeples. Alfonso has a bit more stuff on the board, but I still have 4 high impact tiles remaining for the 2 of the remaining spots. And now comes another interesting move. I have a Dorito tile in hand. Try to figure out what you would do with this. Let me actually pause the video again. So first of all, I'm going to show you what I did and then explain why. I start a new city over here and face it into my opponent's city. Now, why did I do that? So first of all, there are not too many options how I could continue my city. There's this tube-shaped tile, and if I put it over here, then I connect to my opponent's ruin, and my opponent's ruin is worth 9 points, so it is a good investment of a meeple. There's also another tile that fits here, and it is the splitter, or the horizontal splitter, and this would give me 6 points on the scoreboard and a meeple back. But that's it. There are only 2 tiles that fit into that square, which seems like unnecessary risk. But this is where you have to look at the game holistically. I skipped a few moves, but what happened was that my opponent drew 2 out of the 3 daggers that fit into that square. Here they are on the board, here and here, which means that I have only 1 tile remaining that fits into this square. So my probability of getting this meeple back is only 50%, which is not great. So I decided to artificially increase my probabilities by making a setup for a different tile elsewhere. Because I don't need all of my meeples to play well, I just need one of these 2 meeples to play well. And here's the situation now. We have 1 high impact tile over here and 2 high impact tiles over here. So for these 2 meeples in total, we have again 3 high impact tiles, which is an 88% chance to draw at least one of them. So the setup plays are not stopping. This is a very important aspect of the setup strategy here, adjusting to the tile runout. Because my opponent drew so that my probabilities have decreased, I need to find another way of increasing my probabilities. So let's look at what happened on the very next move. Alfonso gets a straight road. I don't quite remember what she did with that, but she does not really have any good moves with this. I guess given the number of crossroads, she could claim a new road. Yeah, this is probably the best. She should be claiming a new road, but she decided against it. And on the very next move, I get one of my tiles. So of course, it's quite fortunate timing. But had I not tried that at all, I would have missed that opportunity. Now I get 6 extra points on the scoreboard, and now my lead is comfortable enough that actually I don't even need this tile or this tile in order to win anymore. Alfonso gets a crossroads, scores 3 points. Alfonso adds 1 point to her ruin. I get a monastery, and I have meeples to play. So I decided to place the monastery in such a way that gives me net 3 points. I take 4, but I also give my opponent 1 point. But most importantly is controlling my opponent's monastery. In order to get her meeple back, she will be forced to add 2 points to my monastery if she wants to fill this and this square. And another aspect, you see she has a monastery in hand. So by going to that spot myself, I prevent her from going there and stacking her monasteries. So that's why she goes there, and she takes a meeple in hand. And honestly, I think she should place there anyway because she needs to come back. But she doesn't because it looks unappealing. It's only 3 points. I get a city meeple back. I have 2 meeples in hand again. I get extra 4 points. Now, Alfonso draws the final dagger, the tile that would have fit into this square. So I'm not getting that meeple back. But as I said before, it was not necessary. I start a ring road. And Alfonso gets the first of the 2 road monasteries. It's a real dilemma of what she should do. And this just goes to show you how important this farmer was. Because Alfonso did win the coin flip. She's the first one. But now she doesn't want to place it over here because it will give her 9 points, but it will give me 6 more field points. So it's a net 3-point move. However, I think she should still do it anyway because net 3 points is better than net 0, and she can do it without investing a meeple. And also, if she places the monastery over here in that square, she will make sure that in case I do draw the second monastery, then I will not be able to place it there. And then she just meepled a 4-point monastery. But this is really just a 3-point move because she's also adding 1 monastery point to me. I finish my ring road, get 4 points in the scoreboard, drop a farmer for at least 3. Alfonso finishes her monastery, but she's also giving me 1 monastery point as a result. That's why it was so important for me to place this monastery here earlier, for which I get now 7 points. But look at this, I even drew the second road monastery, and now I have extra 9 points on the scoreboard and 6 more points for the field. So it was a 15-point move, and as you see, I've started rocking in my chair, knowing that now there is not anything that my opponents can do. She takes 2 points. We will now walk through these endgame moves quickly because they're mostly natural. I get even further points, 4 points for the city and 3 extra points for the field. Alfonso drops a farmer, trying to connect to my 6-point field. It's a small field, but as I mentioned before, the board is so dry that outside this center, where all the events took place, a 6-point field is the biggest field that there is. I get 1 extra monastery point. My opponent also gets 1 extra monastery point. And I get the final monastery, this time without the road. I meeple it for 5 points. My opponent meeples a 5-point ruin, and I spend my last turn on simply adding 1 monastery point to myself. We count points of the incompleted features. Now we're counting field points. I get 6 and I get 9 for the field in the center. Would have been 12 points had I drawn the dagger to complete the little city as well. We shake hands, and I believe I won this one with plus 26, which means that I didn't even need the monastery tile in order to win this. So that just shows what setup plays can do. With 38 tiles remaining, the position on the board was such that I had a lot of high impact tiles prepared, and all we could do was wait. Some of these tiles came, and that's how I won this game. I had tried setup strategies before, but I don't think I ever had more than 7 high impact tiles set up in one game. And here it was 8, so it was certainly a fun thing to try. But most importantly, I got that tournament point. I was in 3 out of 3, and with that, very close to securing my spot in the playoffs. And I would try to secure my spot in the playoffs in round 4. I wish good things to you who is still watching this. I am Alexey from the editing room and I've changed my mind. Our World Championship saga is not going to be a 3-part series, it is going to be a 4-part series. The round 3 game you just saw is a good stopping point for today, not only because this video has been long enough already, but also because the following 3 games of the tournament unfolded in a manner fundamentally different from the first 3 rounds. In the next episode, we'll discuss the following. To what extent is luck a factor in competitive Carcassonne? How is Carcassonne in person different from online play? And of course, we'll look at footage of some interesting games and discuss key strategy decisions in rounds 4 and 5 of the preliminaries, as well as the quarterfinal. In case you've enjoyed this series so far, do meeple the like button to help with the algorithm, and if you intend to watch this kind of content more than once, make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'ma see you soon.